2020 will see some massively anticipated games released. From Cyberpunk 2077 to The Last of Us Part 2, it's sure to be another exciting year for gamers. However, I want to focus on a lesser known RPG that I discovered some time ago. I came across this game about a year ago and I've been fascinated with it ever since. Indeed, I believe this is one of my favourite games of all time, if not the favourite. Divinity Original Sin 2 was always a game that I'd overlooked on the Steam store, or if I got an advertisement for it on YouTube, I skipped it straight away. I did this because the game didn't seem like it would appeal to me. It was turn-based, and in my mind, what RPG could possibly compare to the likes of The Witcher 3? Then in 2019, roughly around February, I was bored out of my mind browsing through the Steam store. I bought Divinity 2 because it was on offer and for no other reason, but Jesus Christ, am I glad that I made that purchase.
You behold a face you've seen before in blackened glass. Soul sickness incarnate, the rotten flesh of the world's most shameful desires, an all-knowing affliction. This is the God King's pallid envoy.
Unfortunately, Divinity 2 is an underrepresented game in the media. On YouTube, searching for the game will show you that it receives lesser attention compared to other big RPGs. Equally, one of the reasons I originally didn't play the game was because the YouTubers I watched simply didn't play it either. In this video, my aim is to convince the me of the past to play Divinity 2. I want to explain to that boy who thought The Witcher 3 was the absolute pinnacle of the RPG genre that Divinity 2 is at least its equal, if not better. I hope that a few of you who are perhaps in the same position, confident that Divinity 2 isn't the game for them, will be influenced by this video. The story is the most important aspect of any RPG. The best games have a powerful one that wrenches your emotions, one that makes you care about the characters within it.
Divinity. Surreal, is it not?
One that, for all its fancifulness, is set in a realistic world where there is no binary between right and wrong. Divinity 2 has all of this. I'm not going to spoil anything important in this video, but there will be some minor spoilers forthcoming as I explain the premise of the game. The moral complexity of Divinity 2 is made apparent to you almost straight away. You are a sorcerer. In the Divinity universe, this is different from simply being a mage. Sorcerers use a special form of magic called Source to cast especially powerful spells, but this Source magic attracts vicious beings called Voidwoken who slaughter innocents in their wake. The Order of Magisters thus capture and detain any sorcerers they find on the mainland. They take them to an island off the coast called Fort Joy. Initially, the main quest revolves around trying to escape the island guarded by these magisters, but it's a difficult position. On the one hand, you're essentially an innocent person who's being imprisoned. On the other, your imprisonment is genuinely helping to safeguard the majority of the people on the mainland because, through no fault of your own, there is the chance that your magic will summon these vicious Voidwoken. Of course, this is but a snippet of the moral complexity of Divinity. I can't talk about this further without spoiling the game, but let me put it this way. There was hardly a single moment in the game where I fully felt like I was doing what was good or right. In almost every situation, I could fathom seeing things from my adversary's perspective, even when it came to the main antagonist. Leading on from this, much of the power behind Divinity 2 comes from the meaningful choices available to the player. Given the morally complex universe, these choices are hard. Some of the game's endings are better than others, but none of them are perfect. Your choices will almost always have some sort of negative effect throughout the game. Again, I can't really go into some of these choices without spoiling the plot, but the power of Divinity's story also comes from its characterization. The party system means that you can choose 3 other NPCs to follow you. There are 6 to choose from, and they aren't just bland NPCs, Rather, they're like fully fleshed out people. Like in most RPGs, there is a main quest, but for each of your party's characters, there is a dedicated quest line, almost as long as the main one. As the master of the party, you're not just changing these characters' skill points, rather, through their individual quests, you're helping them to develop as people, and to an extent, you shape that. The depth of the party system is really what is unique about Divinity 2. I know plenty of other games with similar systems, but in none of them are the party members characterized in such depth. In games like Skyrim and The Witcher 3, you're essentially a lone wolf. You encounter others along your journey, but you do things alone. In Skyrim, you can have followers, but out of all of them, Serana is probably the most fleshed out, and she pales in comparison to how developed the followers are in Divinity 2. In Divinity, every step of the way you're accompanied by up to 3 other people, and this has the ultimate effect of making you incredibly attached to them. As I mentioned before, what is powerful about Divinity 2 is that it makes you care. The turn-based combat system is what puts most people off Divinity 2, and as I mentioned before, it's what convinced me not to buy this game for about 2 years. But in reality, it's one of the game's biggest strengths. Combat in Divinity is like taking your mind to the gym. You are forced to think about every move you make. I used to think that turn-based combat was just boring. It was for nerds who loved adding up attack damage and meticulously planning their offensive. But I've never been so wrong. Divinity 2 makes the combat challenging but also smooth and graphically pleasing enough to stop it being tedious. So what I would say to anyone on the fence about buying Divinity is to just give it a go. Trust me when I say that once you've tried the combat system, despite all your prior convictions, you will love it. The setting of Divinity is also amazing. It's one of high fantasy. It's a world of elves, lizards, and dwarves. It's a younger universe, so there's less lore, admittedly, compared to, say, Skyrim or The Witcher, but the lore that is there is fantastic, and there's more than enough to get your hands on. Like in Skyrim or The Witcher, I found myself picking up books and reading them, talking to characters I didn't need to talk to, all for the sake of increasing my knowledge of this world. And the knowledge itself is complex. The books talk about interesting things. The lore takes a while to get your head around, especially the concept of being what is called God-woken, which you'll come across in the game. Music is always critical to a successful RPG as well. Hands down, Jeremy Soule is the best video game composer out there, and Divinity 2 does not surpass Skyrim or Oblivion or Morrowind in terms of its soundtrack, but it certainly comes close. You only have to look at my Spotify Wrapped as proof of this. Borislav Slavov, the composer for the game, is my second most listened to artist after Jeremy Soule. I know that's a bit of a sad thing to admit, but it's true. Divinity 2 has a smaller soundtrack, I'd say, but each song is near perfect, and it captures the ethos of the game. Especially the main theme, I just absolutely love it. Finally, you might have noticed that this game is called Divinity 2. Indeed, there was a previous game that came out a few years ago, and there were a few more games preceding that. However, Divinity 2, although building upon the first game, is in a way standalone. You can just pick it up, start playing. You don't need to have played the first game. I didn't play the first game, and I understood absolutely everything. Anyway, I hope that I've convinced you to give Divinity 2 a go. At the end of the day, if you buy it and you don't like it, just refund the game, but I think it's absolutely amazing, and I think you'd be mad if you love RPGs, no matter how much you detest turn-based combat systems, not to try this game. It is phenomenal. Thank you for watching this video. I'll do some more Elder Scrolls videos in the coming weeks, especially because I'm on holiday for Christmas, so please do look forward to that. I know I am. Anyway, thanks again, and I'll see you in the next one.